I was talking to my friend the other day and we were talking about how the Mets are made up mostly of boring white dudes with dad bods. And he was saying that Ahmed Rosario, the Mets' new prospect that they called up, looks like a pretty cool dude. And I was like, yeah, you know what? He is a little cool looking dude. And the thing I like best about him is he's bringing back the chin strap. He's bringing back that Abe Lincoln look. I mean, that's bold. I haven't seen a 20-year-old rocking the facial hair of the dude who freed the American slaves ever. And if he's good, maybe it'll be the new style. Maybe everybody will be walking around looking like the great emancipator. But then that kind of got me to thinking, what if there was a prospect who got called up, he was a megastar? I'm talking Bryce Harper, Mike Trout level good, mashing home runs, stealing bases, hitting for average, and everybody loved him. He was good for the sport except for one thing. He had a Hitler mustache. I mean, would people be cool with that? Would people be kind of conflicted? How good would you have to be at the sport of baseball to overcome the stigma of a genocide? I mean, I kind of feel like if you put together a season where you hit 50 dingers and you steal a bunch of bases, people aren't going to really care that you look like the Führer. I mean, we've kind of as a society subconsciously banned that facial hair. Or maybe the reason that people haven't had it over the last 50, 60 years is that it just looks like a hairy booger coming out of your nostrils. These are the things I lay awake at night and think about. Then I kind of remember that Michael Jordan actually tried to bring back the Hitler mustache in a ill-fated Hanes commercial and just never really took. So if MJ can't do it, I don't know if there's any hope. So let's transition to another topic that I am not equipped or qualified or particularly good at talking about: fantasy baseball. Today I got 3 hitters for you, but before we begin, I just want to play a little game that I like to call Ketel Marte, mixed drink or baseball player. I'll give you a second to think of your answer. And time. The answer, believe it or not, is a mixed drink. This is a Ketel Marte. Just kidding. Actually, Ketel Marte is a baseball player, former Seattle Mariner prospect. Kinda was pegged as a high average slap hitter who might steal a couple bases. Had a down year last year, was traded to the Diamondbacks, spent most of the year in the minors, and was recently called up due to injuries. And over the course of this year, he's looked like a much different player than people thought he would be. For one thing, between the majors and minors, he has 10 home runs so far this year after never hitting more than 3 in any year prior. And there are some things that tell me that this is a conscious change in approach by Ketel Marte. It's only 70 at-bats, so it's small sample size, but he's currently posting the lowest ground ball and highest fly ball percentages of his career. And he's also hitting the ball harder than he has at any point in his major league career thus far, primarily trading what had been soft contact for hard contact, which is exactly the trade you want on a mag. His spray chart is also pretty interesting. Right now he's pulling the ball almost half the time, which is not usually something you see in somebody who's known to have a great plate approach and hit for average. When I see an increase in the number of home runs a guy hits correspond with a penchant for pulling the ball more, hitting it harder, and hitting it more in the air, it makes me think that there's likely a swing change involved. The heat maps kind of bear this out, at least showing a distinct change in plate approach. In years prior, he pretty much swung at anything in or around the zone, whereas this year he seems to be looking for pitches down in the zone where he can get some loft under the ball. And it's working. He currently has a 243 ISO, which is nuts. He's a pretty big guy too. I mean, he's 6'1", so there's always the potential of him maturing, and as a consequence, hitting for more power. Never had a ton of speed in the minors, but I think this is somebody who, if the power is real, if the plate approach is real, could hit 12 to 15 home runs, could steal 12 to 15 bases, and like I was saying, his contact ability and ability to draw a walk were never really in question, so he could hit upwards of 280 over the course of the full season. So next up is Timothy Beckham. Kind of missed my chance to be the early bird on this guy. I had been keeping an eye on him for a while just because of his hard hit percentage, which was nuts! He's currently 12th in Major League Baseball in hard hit percentage, just behind Marcell Ozuna and just ahead of noted mashers like Justin Turner, Manny Machado, and Eric Thames. And when I saw that he was traded to Baltimore, I decided to pick him up just speculatively because Camden Yards is a much better ballpark for right-handed hitters than Tropicana Field. And since he was traded, he's actually absolutely been destroying. Over his first 7 games, his triple slash is 583, 600, 1167, which is just like That being said, there are a decent amount of red flags with this guy. He has a 24% line drive rate, which is pretty good, but he's also hitting the ball on the ground almost half the time, and he's striking out at a 31.1% clip and only walking 6.8% of the time. And on top of that, he's currently running a 382 BABIP up there, which is obviously unsustainable. Now, usually when you spank the ball as hard as Beckham does, you can post BABIPs that are significantly higher than the league average, and you can get away with striking out a bit more than usual or hitting the ball on the ground a bit more than usual. But you'd seriously have to be hitting the ball as hard as Aaron Judge to avoid hitting for a below average, below average batting average. That said, I think the 25 home run pace that he's putting up is probably legit, and he's already thrown in a couple stolen bases for good measure, so I think he could potentially steal 10 bases over the course of a full season. So I think in deeper leagues, he's definitely worth an ad. You need help at shortstop or second base, and in some shallower leagues, he's at least worth riding while he's hot. Alright, and that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry, Wilmer. Did I forget about you? I'm sorry, little buddy. Don't cry. I'm gonna cover you. Don't worry. Don't worry, little buddy. I'm gonna take care of you. Alright, so Wilmer Flores. So Wilmer comes with one caveat. Mets are very dumb, and they might not give him a full-time job. Right now, he's the Mets' first baseman. There's been talk of them calling up Dominic Smith at some point, in which case Wilmer will likely shift into a utility role and won't have as much use as he does now. But if he does secure everyday at-bats, I think he's worth owning. He kind of made a name for himself last year as a guy who could absolutely destroy left-handed pitching. He hit 340 against lefties in only 100 at-bats last year, while also hitting 11 home runs. But he struggled against righties, and this year something seemed to click though. He's currently hitting 276 against righties, while maintaining the gains that he had against lefties from last year, hitting 291 against them. And he's managed to do this by posting excellent strikeout percentages, displaying really good power, and not even being assisted by a great BABIP. It's currently 288 and his batting average is 281, so there's possibly room for even more growth in that category. He's hitting the ball much harder than he has in the past, which is great, and he's actually elevating the ball a bit more, which is also good for his power gains. The whole profile tells me that most of what he's doing is sustainable, so I think the triple slash he's running up there now is probably legit, which means he could hit you 25 home runs over the course of a full year, and the fact that he's eligible at first base, second base, and third base makes him that much more enjoyable. So if he gets the at-bats, I think he's definitely worth a grab. And he also just turned 26 2 days ago, so there's definitely room for growth, and who knows what could happen. I mean, what could happen is he could tear his hamstring and never play baseball again. But sometimes we have to ignore the harsh realities of life just to continue surviving. On that note, thanks for joining. Good luck out there. God bless. God bless ya. God bless ya.